My name is Ratna, a nurse at a private hospital in Bandung. I've worked there for almost 8 years, and I'd say I've grown numb to strange things that often happen during night shifts. But that night, my shift on May 12th, 2022, became the one I will never forget for as long as I live. Night shifts always start at 10 p.m. Usually, by midnight, the inpatient ward grows eerily silent. Only the rhythmic beep of heart monitors, the faint squeak of nurse shoes against the floor, and the occasional groan of a patient fill the air. That night, I was assigned to the third floor, rooms 301 to 308. All patients were stable, except one, room 305. A male patient named Surya Mahendra, 47 years old. Surya had been admitted a week earlier after a severe traffic accident. His chest and head injuries were serious. But there was something deeply unsettling. According to the medical record, Surya had been declared dead 3 days ago due to respiratory failure after surgery. Yet, somehow, his name still appeared in the system as an active inpatient. At first, I thought it was just an administrative mistake, until that night when the heart monitor in room 305 began to beep faintly again. Beep, beep, like the pulse of someone still alive. I glanced at my colleague, Nurse Dini, who was checking an IV line nearby. Din, is the monitor in 305 still on? I thought that patient was already... Without looking up, she replied, "Yeah, he's gone. Maybe the monitor just wasn't disconnected from the system." But curiosity gnawed at me, so I decided to check for myself. As I approached room 305, the air grew noticeably colder. The third floor AC was usually mild, but now it felt like stepping into a walk-in freezer. The room's light was dim, curtains half drawn, and on the heart monitor, yes, there it was, a faint, steady pulse, 64 beats per minute. I froze. There was no body in the bed, yet the oxygen tube still hung from its holder. The IV stand stood beside it, half a bottle of saline still attached. On the bedside table lay the patient chart. Name, Surya Mahendra. The last entry on the medical card was dated May 9th, 2022, 3 days earlier. Below the doctor's signature, someone had scribbled an extra note in small handwriting. Patient shows post-mortem electrical activity. Further observation postponed. I swallowed hard. Post-mortem electrical activity? Who wrote that? Around 11:30 p.m., I was in the nurse's station, writing my daily report, when the intercom buzzed. A low, raspy voice came through. "Nurse, could you please turn off the light? It's too bright." I froze. That voice, I recognized it instantly. I had been Surya's nurse when he was alive. His tone was deep, slightly strange from his chest injury. But that was impossible. I turned to Dini, eyes wide. "Did you hear that?" "Yeah," she whispered, pale. "But maybe it's just a glitch. The cable's been disconnected since he died." We stared at each other. Then the intercom crackled again, softer this time. "I'm thirsty." I stood up abruptly. That wasn't a recording. Someone was speaking right now. With a small flashlight in hand, I walked down the quiet hallway toward room 305. Each step echoed sharply in the still corridor. When I pushed the door open, the dim light glowed faintly over the empty bed. But on the white pillow, there was a fresh indentation, like someone's head had just been resting there. The heart monitor was still on, its green line pulsing gently, beep, beep, beep. Vital signs were normal: oxygen 98%, heart rate 66 BPM. It was reading the vitals of someone alive. I leaned closer and tried to hit pause, but suddenly, red text flashed across the screen. Real-time data, active patient. From behind the bathroom curtain came the faint sound of dripping water. Drip, drip, drip. Then, beneath it, the unmistakable sound of slow, heavy breathing. Someone was in there. I slowly pulled the curtain aside. The bathroom was dark, lit only by the beam of my flashlight. Water dripped steadily from the faucet. The mirror was fogged over, but behind my reflection, a shadowy figure stood tall and still. Broad shoulders, a dark, obscured face. I spun around. No one. Yet in the mirror, the figure remained, motionless, towering behind me. Its mouth moved silently, forming words without sound. "Why did you turn off my machine?" I dropped the flashlight and bolted from the room. Back at the nurse's station, I was trembling. Deanie looked terrified. "Ratna, you went into 305, didn't you? I just saw the monitor light up again." We called the on-duty doctor, Dr. Rafi. When he arrived, I told him everything. His expression darkened. "Room 305? You're sure the monitor was active?" "Yes, doctor. I saw the vitals myself." "That's impossible. I was the one who signed Surya's death certificate." He opened an old file on the computer and showed me the photo of the deceased, Surya Mahendra. Everything checked out: time of death, official signature, even the autopsy report. But when we opened the CCTV footage from the night he died, all the files from May 9th were missing. Every single one, except one clip from room 305. The footage showed Surya lying on the bed, still. Then, in the final seconds, his body sat up slowly, removed his oxygen mask, and turned to look directly into the camera. Then, black screen. The next night, I tried to forget about it. But at exactly 10:47 p.m., the monitor in room 305 came alive again. This time, not just the heart rate, but blood pressure too. All readings, normal. We tried disabling the device from the hospital's central server, but every time we cut the connection, the system displayed Device 305 reconnected. Even stranger, an automatic medication order appeared in the pharmacy lock. The prescription label read, Surya Mahendra, room 305, night dose once before sleep. No doctor had entered that order, yet the system printed it automatically. A pharmacy technician even claimed that someone, a tall man wearing a mask, had come to collect the medication in person that night. He said he was from room 305, the technician whispered. Desperate for answers, I spoke to an older nurse, Sister Nani, who had worked there for over 20 years. When she heard the room number, her expression froze. "Room 305?" she said softly. "That room was supposed to be sealed off since 2007. I frowned. "But it's been in use every day. Patients are assigned there regularly." She shook her head. "No, that room was closed after a patient came back to life on the autopsy table. His name was Surya Mahendra." I went cold. Same name, same room, same hospital. Nani's voice dropped to a whisper. Every time they renovate that room, his name reappears in the system, as if he doesn't want to be deleted. Dini and I sneaked into the hospital basement to search the old archives. Dust covered the shelves, and many files were rotting with mold. But we found it, a faded brown folder labeled Name, Surya Mahendra. Admission year, 2007. Status, deceased. Massive internal bleeding. Additional notes. Patient pronounced dead at 0211. However, monitor displayed electrical activity until 0305. Respirator emitted breathing sounds despite oxygen line being disconnected. At the bottom, one line was underlined. 305 remains active. I closed the file, hands shaking. Dini looked at me, eyes glistening with fear. Ratna, then who's in room 305 now?
On the fourth night, the power suddenly went out on the third floor. The generator kicked in, but only a few rooms regained light. Room 305 was one of them. Its light glowed brighter than ever, harsh and unnatural. From the hallway, I could see a shadow moving inside, the silhouette of a man, illuminated by the monitor's pale green glow. Then, the intercom buzzed again. "Nurse Ratna, please reconnect my oxygen." My heart stopped. He said my name. Before I could respond, the door creaked open from the inside. A blast of freezing air spilled into the corridor. Inside, sitting upright on the bed, was a man wearing a faded hospital gown, his skin pale blue, a stitched wound across his head, his lifeless eyes locked onto mine. "You remember me, don't you?" he whispered. "You were the one who turned off my machine." I couldn't move, couldn't speak. He smiled faintly. The monitor behind him beeped rhythmically, steady, living. "You never got the chance to thank me. Now it's my turn to help you sleep." I woke up in the nurse's room, my body stiff, head pounding. Dini was beside me, trembling. "You fainted outside room 305, she said. "Doctor found you around 3 a.m. You were mumbling, 'Don't disconnect the machine,' over and over." I stood abruptly and looked at the control monitor. All rooms normal, except one. 305, active patient. I opened the CCTV folder. The footage from 2 to 3:15 a.m. was automatically deleted. On my desk lay an empty vial labeled with my name and a medication tag that read, "Ratna Devi, room 305, night dose, once before sleep." After that night, I requested a transfer to another floor. But a week later, word spread. Nurse Dini had fainted in front of room 305 too. She swore she saw the same man sitting on the bed, calling her name. The hospital finally decided to seal room 305 permanently. Yet, every midnight, a system notification still appears. Quote, "Patient Surya Mahendra, monitoring active," end quote. The IT department tried deleting his data, even disconnecting all devices. Still, the system showed a steady heart signal pulsing from the void. Now, the room stands empty, locked, and untouched. But new nurses claim to hear the intercom ring from inside. Sometimes, a deep voice murmurs, "Nurse, could you turn off the light? It's too bright." I'm writing this not to frighten anyone, but to remind you that some patients never truly leave. That night, before I blacked out in front of room 305, I remember seeing a faint image reflected in the monitor light, a heartbeat line that was flat, then slowly rising again, marking a new life. I don't know whose life it was. Maybe mine. Because ever since that night, whenever I catch my reflection in the nurse's mirror, there's always a man standing behind me, wearing a hospital gown, smiling faintly, with a patient tag on his wrist that reads 305.
That night, the air outside was cold and heavy with silence. A light drizzle had just stopped, leaving the smell of damp earth lingering on the car's windshield. The man's name was Andra Prasetyo, a radio technician driving home from Surabaya to Solo. He'd spent the entire day repairing a local transmission tower and decided to travel at night to avoid the traffic. The digital clock on his dashboard read 11:48 p.m. The road from Gawi to Sragen was nearly empty, lit only by the occasional flicker of dying street lamps. The car radio played faintly, a national news report about a highway accident near Semarang. The anchor's monotone voice kept him company amid the emptiness. Then, suddenly, the signal began to hiss. Sss, krrrk. Andra turned the dial slowly. No other station came through clearly, only static. He sighed, tapping the steering wheel. Then, out of the static, came a man's voice, deep, old-fashioned, clear enough to make his blood run cold. Good evening, listeners. You're still tuned in to Radio Nusantara FM. We continue tonight's news, the collapse of the Bengawan Solo Bridge following heavy rain earlier today. Andra frowned. Radio Nusantara FM? He'd never heard of that station. And the Bengawan Solo Bridge collapsing? That was impossible. He had just crossed it a few hours ago. It was perfectly fine.
He glanced at the tuner. 103.5 megahertz. When he switched away, the voice vanished. But when he turned back, it returned, steady and chilling. The tone of the broadcast was odd, like something from an old cassette recording.
The number of casualties is reported to be 23 so far, most of them passengers on the Surabaya Solo night bus. Authorities have closed the route until further notice.
Andra's stomach turned. There was no news like that today, not on any channel, not online. He pulled over to the roadside and turned on his hazard lights. The sound grew clearer, and after a brief pause, a signature jingle played. One unmistakably vintage, warped as if from a broken tape deck.
That concludes our report for tonight, February 8th, 1997. I'm Rudy Anwar, signing off. Good night and drive safely.
Andra froze. 1997? He looked at his dashboard clock again. 12:12 a.m., 2023. A cold shiver crawled up his spine. His hands trembled slightly as he stared at the radio, now spitting out nothing but static.
He switched the radio off, started the engine again, and drove on. But his thoughts wouldn't settle. The silence in the car felt heavier than before. Rain began to fall once more, tapping against the windshield. A few kilometers ahead, he noticed a bus parked by the roadside. Lights dim, body covered in grime. Painted on the front, barely visible under the mud, were the words, Sumbar Jaya, Surabaya, Solo. It looked decades old, like something from the late 90s. No passengers inside, no driver. Yet the interior light glowed faintly yellow and the door hung slightly ajar. Andra slowed his car and rolled down the window.
From within the bus came a faint radio broadcast, the exact same voice from before. The number of casualties reported, 23. Andra's breath caught. He slammed the gas pedal and sped away, heart hammering in his chest. He didn't need more proof. Whatever that broadcast was, it wasn't from this time.
Around 2 a.m., he stopped at a small roadside coffee stall near the old Schragen terminal. The sign above read, Pakmantos Warung, hot coffee and instant noodles. Andra sat down, lit a cigarette, and told the stall owner, an elderly man with a thick mustache, about what he had just heard, the radio, the date, the impossible news. The old man stared at him for a long moment, then gave a small, uneasy smile. "Son, what you heard wasn't a broadcast," he said quietly. "You just caught a transmission from the past." Andra frowned. "What do you mean?" The old man sighed, looking out into the fog. "It really happened, back in 1997. The old Bengawan Solo Bridge collapsed during a thunderstorm. A night bus, Sumber Jaya, plunged into the river. 23 people died. The announcer you heard, Rudy Anwar, he died too. Lightning struck the radio tower while he was on air. The studio floor gave in. He never made it out." Andra's lips parted slowly. "But that station doesn't exist anymore, does it?" The old man shook his head. "No, it's been gone for decades. But sometimes, on certain nights, the frequency comes alive again around midnight. People say if you hear it, you'll also see the Sumber Jaya bus, just like it was before it fell." Andra said nothing. His coffee had gone cold. He got back on the road half an hour later. This time, he kept the radio off and played music from his phone. But halfway through the drive, the Bluetooth connection failed. The music stopped abruptly, and from the car's speakers came that same deep voice. "Radio Nusantara FM, special coverage tonight." It wasn't just the announcer anymore. There were screams in the background, metal crashing, shouts, crying. "The bridge is collapsing! Oh God, the water's rising! Help! Help!" Andra slammed his hand on the power button, but the radio wouldn't turn off. He hit the dashboard, nothing. The volume rose on its own, shrieking through the speakers. Then, through the rain-smeared windshield, he saw the silhouette of a bus overturned across the road. Its headlights flickered once, then vanished. Andra screamed and swerved violently, missing the invisible wreck by inches. His car spun to the side and stopped dead. The engine cut off. He sat there, panting, drenched in sweat. But the radio was still on. And now a faint, whimpering voice came through. "Rudy, help me, please." Andra threw open the door and stumbled out. The rain had stopped. The air was thick and cold, heavy with mist. The highway was empty in both directions. Then he heard it, the low rumble of a bus engine coming closer. He turned toward the sound. Through the fog appeared a dim glow, yellow headlights. A bus rolled toward him slowly, almost floating across the asphalt. And there it was again, the same Sumber Jaya bus, old, decayed, windows fogged from the inside. It came to a stop right in front of him. The driver's voice, deep, almost mechanical, called out, Still heading to Solo, sir? Get in before you get soaked. Andra stepped back. Inside, dozens of passengers sat motionless. Their faces were pale, lifeless, staring blankly ahead. Some of their clothes were wet, dripping water onto the floor. He turned and ran. When he glanced back, the bus was gone. Only the mist remained, swirling quietly in the wind. The next morning, a passing truck driver found a car parked by the roadside with its door open. The engine was dead, yet the radio was still on, locked to 103.5 megahertz. Inside, on the driver's seat, they found a pair of skeletal hands gripping the steering wheel. No body, no trace of the driver. Even when police removed the car battery, the radio kept playing. That concludes our report for tonight, February 8th, 1997. I'm Rudy Anwar, signing off. Good night and drive safely. A few weeks later, the case drew the attention of Dr. Haru Santosa, a communications researcher from Yogyakarta State University. He visited the site, curious about the mysterious transmission. Using a spectrum analyzer, he tuned to 103.5 megahertz and began scanning. To his astonishment, he picked up the same broadcast, the 1997 news report, the thunder, the screams, the chaos. But the strangest part? There was no transmitter anywhere nearby. The signal came directly from the air, originating, according to his readings, from the direction of the Bengawan Solo River. Impossible, he later said in an interview. Radio waves don't last 26 years without an active source. Yet every night at exactly 12:12, the same signal reappears. For 3 nights he recorded it. The first 2 were identical. But on the 3rd night, while sitting in his car, he heard something new. Dr. Haru Santosa, if you're listening to this, don't go to the bridge. He froze. He hadn't spoken his name to anyone there. He switched off the device immediately, but seconds later, it powered itself back on and played his own voice, repeating the same words he'd just spoken, distorted by static, as if the frequency had recorded him in real time.
Since then, drivers passing that highway at night have shared eerily similar experiences. Some hear a faint old news broadcast. Some see a ghostly bus idling by the roadside. It always happens between midnight and 12:30 a.m. On internet forums, countless testimonies appear. My radio turned on by itself and played a 90s jingle I've never heard before. It mentioned the bridge collapse. I checked later, it really happened. 1997. One truck driver swore that he saw a pale woman sitting in the passenger seat beside him, whispering softly, "Don't listen to the radio."
Today, locals call that stretch of highway the dead broadcast route. No one dares to turn on their radio while driving through it at night. But sometimes, on damp, foggy nights, people claim they can still hear it faintly echoing in the air. Radio Mosantara FM, special coverage tonight. And for those who stay tuned until the very end, none have ever reached their destination. Their cars are found empty, engines cold, radios still alive, locked eternally to 103.5 megahertz, broadcasting from nowhere. Among truckers and night travelers, a quiet warning passes between them, spoken only in whispers. If you're crossing the Bangwan Solo past midnight and your radio turns on by itself, don't listen. Stop the car, cover your ears, because what you're hearing isn't meant for the living.